The new Weslie and William Janeway Institute in Economics is going to invest in transforming economic research, disseminating frontier work in the Faculty of Economics. Bill is an alumnus of the PhD program at Cambridge. I'm pleased to say he's joining me now. So, Bill, you've been closely involved with INET, the predecessor of the Janeway Institute. How's it going to transition and what's it going to be looking at? Start off with, if you would please, with a bit of history.
Well, the basis and the context for creating the new institute is, of course, the creation more than a decade ago of the Cambridge INET Institute. I was and am a co-founder and board member of the Institute for New Economic Thinking, based in New York. And as it was beginning to explore partnerships with research universities as distinct from funding individual scholars' research projects, I introduced the idea to Cambridge, and specifically to Hamid Saborian, who was then chair of the faculty. Hamid then orchestrated a process that, as I recall, went on for about a year of bringing the faculty towards a consensus on research priorities, themes, that in turn became the basis for a proposal to INET in New York, which was approved. And which amounted to £500,000, which was then $750,000 per year for an initial 5 years, but on a matching basis. So it was two aspects of the creation of Cambridge INET are really important. First, it was a collaborative effort within the faculty, not imposed upon the faculty, to generate a program and a proposal. And second, matching support was delivered from a variety of different sources, initially from the Isaac Newton Trust, among others, the Cambridge Endowment for Research and Finance, a variety of sources. And then, so that's what got Cambridge INET going. And then over 5 years, and then renewed for another 5 years based on an external review of what had been delivered, the Institute became an engine that operated along multiple dimensions, deeply embedded within the faculty. First, it supported, indeed, the research programs of members of the faculty along the themes that had been originally defined and which evolved over time. Second, it funded a visitors program that brought outstanding economists from around the world to Cambridge for periods of time with active engagement. Third, it funded a postdoc program that brought young scholars with their PhDs for a 3-year program in which they could apply themselves to peer-reviewed journal articles, building their track record as scholars. And then more recently, it began to expand outwards as a basis for collaboration with other faculties, particularly with the Bennett Institute in Polis, and then now beginning with the computer science faculty, the computer lab. So the point was that it had become really a significant contributor to Cambridge economics and to the faculty's ability to reestablish, it is a reestablishment, of position as a major source of creative work at a time, and this goes back to the very beginning, at a time when the discipline of economics has been going through a very substantial process of reconstruction, which I would say reflects two things, both of which have been very much the work of the Cambridge INET Institute and will be the work of the new institute. First is to recognize the remarkable quality and creativity of what has been going on in microeconomics. Some of that represented by what is known as behavioral economics, but more broadly, including network economics, the influence of peer pressure on preference formation and decision-making by participants in markets, which had been evolving over the last period of years before the global financial crisis of 2008, but which had really not been taken into account to any great extent by macroeconomics. So you have this reservoir of really original creative work in what is often referred to as the micro foundations of economics. And then the global financial crisis whacked conventional mainstream macroeconomics, so much of which had evolved without any sense, without any provision in models and theories for the interaction between the financial system, financial institutions, financial markets, and the real economy of employment and consumption and investment and saving. And the impact of 2008, which is why the Institute for New Economic Thinking was founded in the first instance, then opened the door for integration across multiple dimensions. One, obviously, at both the micro and the macro level, the integration of finance and economics, of financial economics and the economics of the so-called real economy, but also the building of a macroeconomics that took account and reflected the work going on in microeconomics. Then Cambridge has been distinctive for a third aspect of that, which has been going beyond the networks that link individual market participants to each other, to the networks of supply chains, value chains that, enabled by information technology, were the real engine of the globalization of the last generation. Of course, Vasco Carvalho has been a primary leader in that work. So it's an extraordinarily exciting time to be an economist, to be participating in this reconstruction of a discipline which had reached such an abstract level of theory, particularly at the macro basis, that it had decoupled itself from what was really going on in markets and institutions. And that's why it has been so encouraging to see the turn towards deeper empirical analysis, the development of batteries of techniques for extracting causal relationships from the exponentially exploding array of correlations that the generation of data in a increasingly digitally enabled computerized world generates. So that's all the basis for why it seemed to my wife and me to be a extremely high priority, not just to continue and extend, but to perpetuate the Cambridge INET Institute, to play the role for future scholars, in future decades and generations, that the Cambridge INET Institute has played over the last 10 years.
Now, of course, Bill, you obviously had a great time studying for your PhD at Cambridge, but for those people working in the financial markets today, how important is it that they not only have a good solid grounding in economics, but also that they study at a postgraduate level, and as an alumnus, they stay in touch with the Faculty of Economics so that they stay up to date with the latest economic theory?
Well, I think it's critically important, and it's a major benefit of the digital revolution, that the friction involved in staying connected has been reduced so radically. We saw this during the months, particularly the first 6 to 8 months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Cambridge was one, not the only one, but Cambridge was one that was able to mobilize its faculty to deliver both research that was absolutely based on what was happening virtually in real time, but also to communicate that research to the alumni of Cambridge, as well as more broadly through external media channels. I think that is a great benefit, and one that we will have learned from and that will continue both from this university, this economics faculty, and more broadly. This is one of the great benefits of digital revolution, but it also reflects how crises can generate creative responses that then we realize have value even as the crisis recedes.
So Bill, finally, it's been great talking to you, but can you really sum up what's your ambition for the new institute and how should it stand out as a distinctive seat of research?
Well, I think that the one thing I really want to emphasize, when the Cambridge INET Institute was established, it was established by initiative from within and across the faculty. It was embedded in the faculty. It was not a stand-apart group with its own funding, separate from the faculty. That's not been the case in a number of other such institutes in other universities. That made it, I think I can say without any hesitation, Cambridge INET Institute stood out as a jewel in INET's crown. It was seen by the INET board, by the INET staff, as one of the really distinctive contributions that INET had made in its first decade. And that contributed mightily to our motivation, as I say, to perpetuate the work of that institute and its role within the Cambridge Faculty of Economics.
Thanks, Bill. Really good talking to you. That's been a fascinating insight into the new institute. I'm sure it's going to make a very dramatic mark into the world of economic research.
Okay. Thank you very much, Julian.